Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for July 2nd, 2024. The transformation of the global strategic architecture is moving at a rapid pace toward what can only be called a tectonic shift. We're seeing governments and parties upended and the plans they had to maintain their unipolar order collapsing. For those of you who believe that this is all part of a plan by the oligarchy and its corporate forces, the forces that run the World Economic Forum and the various governments, I can only say you are wrong. The so-called Great Transformation, the Great Reset, for global central bank dictatorships controlled by these networks of global corporate cartels above the nation states, that's being rejected. That was their plan. It's being rejected. And not by the governments they control, but by the people. The oligarchies have been defeated before, but it required a mobilization of the population. We know they're not going to give up. They have counter plans. They're going to try to maneuver to control what's emerging to replace their collapsing system. We know all that. But it's up to us to make sure that they don't succeed and that we succeed in creating something new and viable. And to make sure that their plans are disrupted, their fantasies shattered, their delusions exposed, and their powers removed. That's where we are today. That's what we're facing. Because their power ultimately depends on the ability to manipulate populations to submit to a global control, to submit to the idea that your peace and security depends on the powers that be, namely the City of London and Wall Street, the modern empire, that you have to submit to them if you want security. But there's no security from them. They're predatory looters who don't give a damn about you and your family. So the question is, can we rise to the occasion? Now, I want to take you on a quick tour of this tectonic shift underway to give you a sense of both the magnitude and also the work we have to do. So let's start with the U.S. and Biden's catatonic bungling at the debate. Now, that was not an accident. That's who Biden is. And it raises some important questions. There is panic among the Democrats because they have no viable alternative. What, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, these are legitimate alternatives. They're trying to figure out if they can somehow resurrect Biden and keep him propped up like Weekend at Bernie's until after the November election. But the reason they have to do this is because their system is collapsing under debt, under physical economic decline, under bad policies, under an unpopular, unwinnable war. So they're stuck with Biden. Now, maybe they'll get rid of him, maybe not. That's really a secondary question. The primary question is, who's making the policy now while he's in the office as a sock puppet? And that's something we're going to be investigating further. We have a lot of leads on this. Of course, ultimately it goes back to the City of London and Wall Street. But what are the networks through which they operate? And we're going to take a look at that over the next days. Now, then let's take a look at the trouble for the puppets in the European Union. Start with France. Macron was crushed. The little Napoleon and his party got barely 20% in the snap elections they had this last Sunday. Now they're up for the second round this coming Sunday. I can't tell you exactly what will happen because there's a lot of maneuvering going on. The point is, Macron's ability to manipulate Europe has now been completely trashed. And whatever else happens this Sunday, he's going to be a lame duck. United Kingdom, the center of where the City of London is. Sunak is another little puppet. His party is going to be defeated, crushed. The Tory party will be gone. Now, is Starmer an option? Of course not. He probably will be the prime minister, but maybe not. but he's a Tony Blair protege. And so the situation in the United Kingdom will continue to be one of desperation and chaos until there's a breakup of the current party structure there. What about Germany? Well, the coalition government is collapsing. It's ungovernable. They have disagreements over how to deal with the budget. Are they going to stick with the debt brake, which means they cannot borrow more money than they can cover from their income, which means no money for infrastructure, no money for healthcare, no money for education, but a lot of money for war? And the Greens are at the heart of that. The Green New Deal is destroying Germany. It's going backwards. It's going into deindustrialization. So the question is whether groups like the Alternative for Deutschland, the Sarah Wagenknecht Party, can put together some kind of program to replace the existing collapsing coalition government. Canada, those of you from Canada already know this. You've been telling me this for a long time. Trudeau has no support. He's an empty shell. And his party is basically a placeholder for the British Empire. The official polls show him with 28%. I doubt that it's even half that. Then Japan, the new darling for the global NATO, well, the Kishida government is at about 13% in the polls. So they make Trudeau look good. Now, then you look at the European Union with the discussion that its economic policies will succeed because of the defense buildup and the Green New Deal. Well, the Green New Deal is destroying agriculture and industry, and the defense buildup is being held back because the countries don't have the money. And can you say to people who are losing jobs and losing homes and losing everything, don't worry, we're going to build up our army so we can stand up to Russia? It's not going to work. And that's why the European Parliament vote went against the leading powers of the European Union, Germany and France. Italy, the party there, didn't do so well either. And the Ukraine war is not going to get better. In fact, we may soon see the Ukraine war end because of the collapse of Ukraine and the emergence within Europe of sovereign governments such as that of Viktor Orban in Hungary. So what's the issue? The issue is the globalists of the corporate cartels versus nationalist parties around the issue of sovereignty. Will nations have a right to determine the policies that are best for their people, or will they be dictated by the banks and corporations? Who benefits from government policies? In the United States, the question is, who's making the decisions? We know it's not Biden. It's not Jill Biden. There's actors behind the scenes, as there always have been. The so-called swamp that Trump had pledged he would take care of and was unable to. But the point is, it's now exposed that these are puppet regimes. Most importantly, which most of you don't know too much about, is the emergence of a new system. And you don't know about it because it's either not reported or it's slandered. But the BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Organization of Islamic Countries, OPEC, the African Union, they're in the midst of an incredible process of building a new system based not on funny money controlled by the Western banks, but on physical economic production, on the raw material wealth, and most importantly, on the potential productivity through the advance and development of their young populations. So if you think BRICS and the Belt and Road Initiative are part of the World Economic Forum policy, let me ask you this. Why is the West trying so hard to destroy them? The war in Ukraine is against the BRICS. The war in Gaza is to destabilize the BRICS. The threats against China, they're all designed to stop the alternative new system from coming into being. And it's not going to work. So I'll have more on this alternative tomorrow because it's important that people have a clear sense of it. But what I'll leave you with today is that these changes are good If we don't have a dramatic change, we're going to end up in World War III and possibly nuclear war. Maybe not in the next couple of months, but at some point in the very near future. And the issue at this point is what will be the shape of the new architecture. It will not be based on rules, as in a rules-based order, but we need a set of fundamental principles that take into consideration the legitimate security of all nations. And a major part of that legitimate security is an economic development architecture, not controlled by greedy private banks who control the central banks, but by nations that make their economic policy based on the actual real needs of growing populations. And that's what Helga Zepp-LaRouche provided with her fundamental principles. I'm appending this again in the description section. Read it, circulate it, think about it. Think about what it would mean if we have fundamental principles based on natural law and constitutional principles such as the U.S. Constitution, as opposed to the arbitrary rules determined by those powerful corporate interests which are now about to be wiped out. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you again tomorrow.